Hey, good morning. Now, you might be wondering, Ryan, why are you coming to us from your home and why aren't you wearing any shoes? Well, those are both great questions. Let me answer the first one. I'm coming to you from my home because safety starts at home and hydration starts at home as well. So, so it's 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm about to go in for my shift. But guess what? First thing I'm going to do is grab me a bottle of water and start hydrating. Now, I didn't just start this morning. I started last night leading into this morning to get hydrated for my day. So when you're sleeping, you're going anywhere from 5 to 8 hours, depending on how much sleep you're getting, without any water at all. That's a long period of time to not have hydration. So as soon as you get up in the morning, grab you that bottle. Don't wait until you get to work. All right, I'll see y'all at work. And now that I'm at work, guess what? I'm going to continue hydrating myself throughout the day. We work in an extremely hot and humid environment. And you know what that humidity does? It doesn't allow our sweat to evaporate, which is our body's way of cooling ourselves off. So if our sweat can't evaporate, we will continue to get hotter and hotter. So make sure you stay hydrated and you take proper breaks throughout the day. Now, y'all stay safe and stay hydrated and stay cool. How's it going? Today, we're going to be taking a look at the fall protection policy and all the procedures that are put in place to keep you safe, keep me safe, and to keep us safe. Remember, you are the most important resource that we have. All right, let's check it out. As we talk about the fall protection policy, you may see a pop-up at the bottom of the screen. Take note when you see that, because that may be the answer to a question that comes up on your quiz later. So watch out when you see that pop-up. It could be important information that, one, you want to know anyway, and two, you want to know so you can get that quiz answer, right? This month's safety training is on fall protection. Fall protection is a big initiative, and we want to make it clear and concise so you know how to make the safe and correct decisions when you're working. So let's take a look. This policy was developed by the All-Stell team. They got together and met over a period of a couple months to review and revise this policy to work in our mill to keep us safe. So in your training, you'll be given a copy of this policy, and I encourage you to read through it as well, but we're going to take a look at it together right now. The Greif All-Stell team has implemented this fall protection program to inform employees and contractors about hazards of working at heights greater than 4 feet and measures that they can take to protect themselves from hazards. Now, this policy does not address ladders. If an employee is working on a portable ladder, the employee will not place his or her body outside the side rails of the ladder, and the ladder shall not be in an unstable position with the potential for tip over. If this is the case, then a ladder is not the proper tool for the job, and you should consider using an aerial lift such as a scissor lift. So a scissor lift or another aerial lift should be the first thought when you're going to do a job. Why? Because they give you a platform to work from and you're not having to lean off of a portable ladder. So make sure that's your first thought. But this policy is not here to address portable ladders. The scope of this policy. The Fall Protection Program covers all employees of Greif and contractors who conduct work at Greif All-Stell and that may have the potential to be exposed to heights, there it is again, greater than 4 feet. That's your key height, 4 feet, during the performance of their job duties. Let's take a look at some general guidelines. In addressing fall protection and fall hazards, the following hierarchy should be followed. Now, you remember the hierarchy of controls, right? We want to use that so that we can first try to eliminate the hazard. That's the preferred way to address fall hazards. An example is relocating the work so you can do as much work as possible, not at heights. Do the work on the ground and then bring it up to have it installed. Step two would be when fall hazards cannot be eliminated, fall prevention must be considered as the next option. Here's an example. Use of a man lift, use of fall restraint system that prevents you from getting to the fall hazard, installation of standard work platforms to access the equipment. Now, option number three, when all other options have been exhausted, the use of fall protection equipment is required. So you see there, fall protection equipment is your last resort. That's the PPE stage, right? That's your last resort. There's no other way to eliminate the hazard, so we give you some PPE to protect you in case everything else goes wrong. Now, all fall protection equipment shall be company issued. That means if you have your favorite lucky harness from 15 years ago that you've worked with your whole life, keep it at home as a good luck charm, but don't use it here at Greif Austell. We want to provide you the best fall protection equipment, and we need to keep a standard equipment for all employees to have. Because although you may have some really good equipment, someone else may bring in some equipment that is not so good. So only use company issued equipment. Electrical personnel will be required to use ARC-rated personal fall protection equipment, which we've issued to all the electricians. If you don't have ARC-rated fall harnesses, talk to your supervisor and we'll get it for you. Personal fall protection systems and their components shall be used only for fall protection and no other purposes. Personal fall protection systems or any of the individual components subjected to an impact loading must be immediately removed from service and or inspected to determine by a competent person to be undamaged and suitable for reuse. I'm going to tell you right now, if we use our fall harnesses or self-retracting Lifeline in that way, we're going to take it out of service and we're just going to get you a new one. So now let's look at application. When do we do these things? When an employee's work assignment is more than 4 feet above the ground, floor, liquid, or other surface, one of the following safety measures must be applied. The employee must be protected by a perimeter guardrail that includes a mid-rail and a toe board, or fall restraint system. Remember, the restraint system stops you from getting to that leading edge. Or the employee shall be safeguarded by a fall body harness, an SRL, self-retracting lifeline, and a rest device secured to a lifeline or structure capable of sustaining the imposed load of falling. Remember, that's your last line of defense. That's your PPE. That's if all the other things can't be done. Prior to starting work, employee will review and fill out the Fall Protection Plan questionnaire. The SRL, or self-retracting lifeline, must be used when employees are greater than 4 feet off the ground and using a fall rest system. When an employee's work requires them to work in an articulating boom or scissor lift or any other aerial lift, the employee shall be safeguarded by a full body harness and an SRL. Remember, that's your self-retracting lifeline. Those self-retracting lifelines will retract as soon as you start falling, they stop. We'll talk about those a little bit more here in a minute. And those SRLs have to be anchored off to the approved anchorage point on the platform. If an employee is required to leave the working platform, a double lanyard with 2 SRLs is required. That way you can be tied off to the anchorage point. Then you tie off to another anchorage point of what you're getting on. So then you're tied off at both locations. And before you step off onto your new location, off the scissor lift or aerial lift, then you disconnect your first tie off. So that way you're tied off 100% of the time. It's called a 100% tie off. No human lifting forklift cages shall be permitted in Austell Greif. If you see one, let your supervisor know, tag it out. We're going to get rid of it. We're not using human lifting cages on forklift. They've been deemed as too dangerous and not worth the risk. Every employee at Greif that has a fall harness should be issued a self-retracting lifeline. Now, A self-retracting lifeline is going to stop as soon as it feels you start to fall. It's kind of like a seatbelt. It locks up right when you start to fall. Unlike the old-fashioned lanyards that would allow you to fall and then they would expand out and allow you to fall even more before stopping you. So if you're up on a 10-foot area and you fall off, you're going to hit the ground with the old lanyard. But with a self-retracting lifeline, 10 feet up, you're not going to hit the ground because it's going to retract immediately and not allow you to fall any farther. We'll take a look at an illustration right here that'll show you what it looks like when you use a lanyard and the distance that you're allowed to fall when you have that lanyard. Take a look. Let's look at the criteria for fall protection systems. Fall protection systems must be in place before the employees begin work. All right, so this is part of your job planning. If you're going to be working above 4 feet and you don't have the guardrails and you don't have a fall restraint system, the fall harness should be used, but you need to have all this as part of your planning. When you know you're working at heights, plan accordingly. Training that is conducted shall cover the following topics: applicable standards, personal fall protection system currently used, inspection of fall protection systems, system components and setup, recognition of fall hazards, fall hazard elimination, and storage of your fall protection equipment. Now, we've had all mechanics and all electricians go through awareness training that covers a majority of those topics. And we'll have all new employees go through the fall protection awareness training as well. We're also going to have a minimum of 4 competent people trained as fall harness experts. And at a minimum, we're going to do retraining every 3 years. We'll also retrain someone when they've been trained but aren't demonstrating the necessary skills. Retraining is required when the workplace has changed in a way that renders previous training obsolete. When fall protection equipment changes in a way that renders previous training obsolete, and when the employees just don't remember how to use the equipment properly, then we'll do retraining before the 3 years. But other than that, every 3 years, we'll do fall protection awareness training. Inspections. A safety harness, lanyard, strap, or self-retracting lifeline, including the hardware, shall be inspected by the user before every day that they use it. Now, if you're not going to use fall protection that day, do you need to inspect your fall protection equipment? No, you don't. Can you? Absolutely, you can check it out. But if you're going to use it, you're required to inspect it. Now, that inspection does not necessarily have to be documented at this point, but you need to inspect your equipment every single day that you use it. Annually, we're going to have an outside third-party competent inspector come in to inspect all the fall protection equipment that we have on site and make sure it's up to par. Here's an example of a daily inspection. Some things you're going to want to look at is your harness. You're going to look at your self-retracting lifeline. You're going to look at the retractable and make sure it's retracting properly. Look at any beam straps that you have. Just look at all your equipment thoroughly and fully. Take a look at your inspection and follow it through. Now, we're going to have this inspection uploaded to the CMS. So anytime you have working from heights, you can pull that up on the CMS and do your inspection. You are also required to have a rescue plan in place. Anytime you're putting on your fall harness and you're doing work, you need to have a rescue plan. Now, why would you need a rescue plan if you have your fall harness on? Well, think about this. What if you actually fall into your harness? How are you going to get yourself out? You're not in a lot of cases going to be able to rescue yourself. So you need to have a personal fall protection rescue plan every time before you go do a job that requires fall protection. And we're going to provide you some documentation where you can do that, where you can write out your plan. Sometimes it's a simple plan. I'm doing a job that requires fall protection at heights, and I can be rescued by a scissor lift. Scissor lift can get in there easily, raise up, and get me down and rescue me. That could be your rescue plan. Some areas are a little bit more difficult and may require a little bit more extensive rescue plan. Now, we're also going to be doing some rescue training with our competent people, so that we'll have people trained in using proper rescue equipment. So if you fall in one of them weird places where it's too hard to get you out of, we'll have people competent and trained to be able to rescue you out of those places. But that will be part of the rescue plan. Here's a few questions you can ask yourself before you go do work. How high is the work going to be? What tools and PPE will I need to perform the job? Will the work be done solo or in a buddy system? Can work be brought down to ground level instead of doing prolonged work at heights? Are there environmental factors, heat, cold, slippery, wet, wind? If yes, what safety precautions am I going to take? If an outside rescue service is needed, who are they? How do I contact them? Are they on site? Are they ready? Do they know where I'm working? Is rescue equipment immediately available for this location? Ladders, aerial lifts? If my rescue plan is to be rescued from a scissor lift, do people know where I'm at? Is there a scissor lift available to rescue me? When you fall into your harness, most data indicates that you have about 15 minutes to be rescued up out of that harness before you can have prolonged health hazards that could even lead to death. From being in that fall harness, you can restrict blood flow and cause blood clotting, which can actually lead to death. So remember, I always tell people the second worst thing to falling down to injury or death is falling into your harness. You need to be rescued out of that harness and quickly. So never go into your fall harness without a plan in place and people knowing where you're at. Because imagine if you fall into your harness and you can't get to your phone. You can't get to your radio. Maybe your radio falls off. Who knows you're there? Do you have a buddy system? Are you working in pairs? You should be. As you look through the policy on your own, at the end of the policy, you'll see some definitions that'll make you more clear on what the different subjects we're talking about in this fall protection. You'll see passive fall protection systems, anchorage points, competent person, qualified person, safety monitoring system, self-retracting lifeline. Those are all defined in the back of your policy. Make sure you have a copy of that and that you understand the policy before you put yourself at risk. So as a reminder, a fall harness is our last line of defense as our PPE. We want to use a hierarchy of controls and eliminate, substitute, or engineer out the fall hazard before we even just jump straight to fall harnesses, right? Don't let a fall harness be your first answer. Let it be your last answer after you've exhausted all other potential hazard elimination practices. Today's training mainly covered the new policy and procedure for fall protection. If you feel like you need more in-depth training on fall harnesses and self-retracting lifelines and how to use them, if you weren't included on the annual training, talk to your supervisor, talk to your safety lead, and we will get you trained on the particulars and details on how to properly use your harness and lifeline. We don't want you using them without the proper training. So talk to your supervisor, talk to your safety lead. All right, so we literally read through the fall protection policy together. I will encourage you to go and read it for yourself. Make sure you fully understand it. If you have any questions, get with your supervisor, get with the safety lead, ask those questions so you can get a better understanding. Let's all be safe together. You matter, you are important, and you make the difference when it comes to safety. We're all in this together. We're all a team working toward the same safe goal. I appreciate you guys paying attention. I appreciate you watching this video. Now let's be safe.